Before Krishna, before Rama, before the 10 avatars of Vishnu, even before Vishnu, Brahman, and Shiva were born, before Goddess Durga and Lord Brahma, before any universes were filled with gods and goddesses, the divine supreme God, Sat Purush, already existed. Sat Purush is the emanated form of Supreme God. In the unemanated form, it's called the Anami, or the Nameless One. Within Sat Purush, there were few original beings that were emanated, of which one is the Gyani. And Gyani has come to earth in Sat Yuga as Sat Sukrit, in the Treta Yuga, in the age of Treta, as Maninder, in the Dvapara Yuga as Karuna, and in the current age of Kali as Kabir. So the very first avatar that, in the truest sense of the meaning of avatar, who came as descent of God, of the true God of Sat Purush, is actually Gyani, and in the current age is known as Kabir. He brought the means of liberation for the souls to return back home. So the avatar in Sanskrit means descent. It is generally a symbolic imagery of Saguna Brahma, which is, in other words, a manifested form of God. Kabir always spoke of Nirgun Brahm, the God without form, before form was assumed, before universes were created. And nowadays, there are many classifications of avatars, descents of higher deities. Essentially, every deity of every universe is today considered as avatar. How many there are? Only of Lord Vishnu there are 10 major avatars. Some say there are 24 or even more. There are also avatars of Lord Brahman and Shiva and many other goddesses as well are assumed as avatars. So this word has become very popular, and today it can mean any association with any deity, mostly within this universe though. So avatar means descent, to make one's appearance of God, in the true meaning, appearance of true God, of Sat Purush. Avatar also implies to overcome, remove, to bring down, or to cross something. So crossing or coming down, divine descent from eternity in temporal realm, from unconditioned to conditioned, from infinite to infinitude to finitude. So essentially today, avatar is seen as saguna, which is with form and attributes. It is important to recognize now that there are many associated deities, as many as you can count gods and goddesses. In Hinduism, there's about 300,000 deities or more identified. In other religions such as Islam or Christianity, it is seen more simpler and it's seen as essentially as a prophet or Messiah who appears to assist humanity from unrighteousness to righteousness, to bring the truth back. In essence, every living being is an avatar of God. You are, in essence, the avatar of God. But you haven't realized that yet. You haven't confirmed that to yourself. I would like to quote Meher Baba's quote, passage on being the avatar. When he says that he is the avatar, there are few who feel happy. There are some who feel shocked. There are many who, hearing this claim, would take him for a hypocrite or a supreme egoist or just being mad. If he was to say that every one of you is an avatar, a few would be tickled and many would consider it a blasphemy or joke. The fact that God, being one, indivisible, and equal in all of us, we cannot be anything else but one. And that is too much for the duality conscious mind to accept. Because each of us is what the other is. So Meher Baba says that he knows he is the avatar in every sense of the word. And he knows that each and every one of you is an avatar in one sense or the other. In one sense or the other, I will repeat. So that depends on your degree of realization. It is an alterable and universal recognized fact that since time immemorial, that God knows everything, God does everything, God is everything. And nothing happens but by the will of God. So each of you is essentially an avatar, a form of God, to the extent you recognize it, though. Just like in the movie Avatar, where a person transfers his consciousness into another body and now lives in another environment, it is the same way that your own soul has transferred its consciousness into your form. And then it has adopted a veil of forgetfulness, a personality, and a physical body. You are the avatar of soul, because the soul, your soul, it knows who it is, and it is assuming this body which is birthed by natural means, to be its avatar. So in all the senses, you are the avatar of your soul. And the soul is the avatar of God, because within the heart of God is soul. So in the truest sense, everyone, every living creature is an avatar of God. Every living creature lives within God. It is indivisible. All is one. And humanity is playing hide and seek, the game of hide and seek. Coming to classification of avatars, it is the degree of realization, of self-realization, the soul advancement, and the assumption of a role, the assumption of responsibility. So let us look a bit closer to what are the orders of avatars. The lowest order of avatars is the yogis who, via meditation, attain some union with certain deity. For example, one is admirer of goddess Lakshmi or Parvati, or Ramakrishna was the devotee of goddess Kali. And these yogis merge their own self and identify their own self with that deity of this universe, and they proclaim that now they are the avatar of Kali or Shiva or any other deity that there are, and there are many, many, many. So this order is the local order, let's say, the local order of self-proclaimed avatars who simply merge their attention into the field of that deity's attention. And it's a certain union that happens, and they can feel the actions, activities, and realizations according to that level of the local Brahmanda deities. A local Brahmanda is this universe where we reside right now. As we know, there are 21 lower universes, and this is one of them. And therefore, all the avatars have known to humanity are primarily of this universe, but some of them go beyond. So this is where there is the entry to Par Brahmanda, which is a supra universe. And in that region, there are 700 quadrillion universes. Now, how many deities are there? You can do the maths. And some of these universes are much, much million times larger than this one, more complex, and many more deities are governing it according to creation of that universe. So yogis, sages, and saints who ascend to the higher level of realization, they may identify with these higher aspect, higher realm of reality of the Par Brahmanda, the super universes. In the human history, there are quite a few genuine gurus at this level. And this is, for example, some of the famous one would be Ramana Maharishi, but he never identified as avatar. But he was there. He was a guru primarily established in that region, also having one foot in the divine too. And perhaps the best example I can give are two recent gurus. One is Neem Karoli Baba. Now he was sitting right in between Parbrahmanda and the divine. But he was so much embodied in the Parbrahmanda that it is the best example I can give. And interesting things were unfolding in his life. And we have a very beautiful connection with him. We visited his Samadhi ashram in Vrindavan. And from time to time, he comes and collaborates with our work. Another example, more from a Western perspective, of the Parbrahmanda or supra-universal region avatar is proclaimed avatar Adida Samraj, and he was following more non-dual tradition of inquiry. Very beautiful being, very great Shakti and power he had. But at the same time, reading his writings, there is a sense of certain incompletion or certain edges of his view of himself. Now, by the truest sense, we have the further higher order of beings, for example, Mahavatar Babaji. Now, Maha means great, a greater avatar. Mahavatar, greater avatar. Mahavatar Babaji. As you know, we have an article, and I've spoken before, that Mahavatar Babaji was physically incarnated, and he met his guru, and he ascended and became, now I will bridge the West with the East to say that he became ascended master. So actually, all ascended masters are Maha avatars. They're all great gurus in their own sense, and they are all God-realized beings, and they assumed the ascension form and a cosmic and planetary responsibilities, and therefore they administer their duties and their grace upon humanity. Of course, we may say that Jesus was one of them. He is the greatest Western Maha Avatar. And in the East, we have Mahavatar Babaji, who holds this title, although there are certainly more gurus who have reached that state as well. The world teachers, such as Krishna, he functions on many levels. So Krishna is considered as a Vishnu avatar, but also his life on earth wasn't easy, first of all. As a young boy, he was very joyous, very gifted, very inspiring, and living in Vrindavan. But when he left Vrindavan, his life became very difficult because the war was about to come. And during the war, the Kabir path has certain concerns of life of Krishna, because during the war, there were many bad things happening. And he instructed Arjuna how to behave in the war against his relatives. What a complex situation. And at the end, Krishna died in a very humanly fashion, actually quite paradoxical and simple fashion that he was sleeping in the nature, and a hunter saw his foot, and he confused or mistook it for a part of a deer. So he shot an arrow, and he shot Krishna's foot, and through the bleeding of it, Krishna died. And he said, it is all okay, because in my past life as Lord Ram, he actually killed one of the demigods or the bad beings. So that was karma paid off. So this is a big lesson that Krishna paid off the karma of the past life. Because he killed someone, he was killed. So in the human form, Krishna's life was very difficult from the circumstances themselves. Jesus' life was also very difficult from the circumstances that are known of. And the same way with Muhammad and other prophets and world teachers. Well, maybe I could say that Buddha's life was more content, because he was really not involved with the worldly deeds. And Buddha in his life, upon attaining his enlightenment, he set up a monastic way of living, and he instructed the monks on the ways of realization. However, all of these beings mentioned, they have a higher form in the supra-universal region, Parbrahmanda. And this is where the true heavens are, the true heavens, where the soul is no longer caught up in the trap of duality, in the trap of Lord Kal or Brahm. So in the higher regions of Parbrahmanda, essentially all these beings have their own universes. There is a Krishna universe. There is a Buddha universe with all the sub-heavens in each of them. And in the previous satsang, I have shown you the cosmology of the Krishna, and I explained to you that the pure lands of the Buddha are actually in the Par-Brahmanda region. So again, all of these beings have an even higher form in the divine. And within the divine, they have attained a certain mastery. Jesus is a holder of a truly divine lineage, which is only spoken of in the Urantia book. And the Christianity is extremely edited out version, which does not cover any of the higher means anymore. And the same way, Krishna is mainly met by the devotees at the lower region, by very few devotees on the supra-universal region, and only actually self-realized gurus would meet Krishna in the divine, what he truly is, or where he's truly anchored. And the same thing applies to Buddha as well. So all these beings actually do come from the divine region, and they are, we may say, perfect masters of the divine region. That's one way of putting it, or the avatars of the divine region. And they have established themselves and their creation in the Parbrahmanda, and on their brief journey on earth, through various examples, different examples of their life, the way they lived, they left their foot or their mark in the human history. So now coming to the highest order of avatars, it is the divine order of the Purush region and above. As we know, there are 6 divine regions. The most recent being who held a position, authority, we may say, and responsibility is the Meher Baba, and he has spoken extensively about his duties as he realized at that highest level. However, there are more paths, divine paths, and this is a certain mastery of the soul that can be attained, and thus rising up and realizing all the activities within the divine regions, within the true God regions, realizing all the nature of creation below. So essentially, every divine master, every divine being essentially is the avatar, because it is a descent of the divine supreme knowledge down here, all the way down here into the human realm. There are various, though, differences between the divine beings according to their level of mastery, we may say, or as we measure the level of advancement of the soul and also their responsibility, duties, and their embodiment or their duration and activities of assisting humanity in its endeavors. So what role does soul and the human nature play in this grand scheme of things? The soul ascends, advances, returns back home. So from one perspective, your soul may ascend to the top of this universe and merge its attention with the local deity and identify as avatar in this context of creation. I would consider somebody to be a bit more real avatar who is liberated from this universe of duality, who is liberated from this universe of entrapment. So therefore, I would consider that yogi whose soul has risen to the supra-universal level, and therefore the soul is unbound by the lower creation, by the dualities and by the negative currents. So this is the path of the soul from one perspective, the upward path. But the other path that can be also seen in the way is that when you connect with your soul, when you truly experience your soul, you are the avatar of your soul. The true nature of your soul is love, is bliss, happiness, joy, and God. So connecting with the soul, experiencing the soul is already quite an enlightening experience. Yet it is not a complete self-realization yet, but it is always a very enlightening experience. And the soul simply has accumulated a lot of layers, veils, conditioning, karmas, in other words, that weigh it down. And the soul recognizes that these are my baggages, luggages. It's not who I really am, the soul says. The soul has a clear discernment that that's not who I really am. These are simply my luggages, attachments, accumulated karmas. So from the bottom perspective, uniting your attention with your soul is always an enlightening experience. And many, when they do this, they assume that they have seen God, that they have realized God, or that now they have experienced God. That is not the case yet. Although it is partially true, because soul is God. Soul is made of God. Your soul in the heart of the soul is God, is the light supreme. So therefore, when you consciously in meditation unite your attention with your soul, it is an enlightening experience, and you do meet God in a partial sense. And this is the first thing to do. And of course, there are many stages of further self-realization, clarification, removal of obstacles along your path, so that you can further realize that even the soul itself is within God, that God is in the heart of the soul. The soul is made of God, and that is where self-realization occurs. When you enter more into the divine region and attain full consciousness, you gain this insight, this clarity. Of course, karmas still remain, certain other karmas still remain, and by clearing those other karmas, there are two tracks. One is a simpler liberation track, but the other one is more difficult. It is the empowerment track. And within the empowerment track, sometimes we need to pause on the highway so that you take some time to settle in and to attain certain additional insights, realizations, and empowerments, or certain powers, and we could even say siddhis, the inner siddhis, the subtle siddhis, which are the true siddhis, so that you attain a certain mastery, you may say certain empowerment, and ability to help others from that plateau, from that place all the way down. So this is the empowerment track, which then of course consists of multiple steps above according to all creation. And finally, human nature. How does it fit into all of it? As I mentioned the story of Krishna's life, he was human too. He was born, he was raised as a child, he was eating and sleeping and doing all the functions of the physical body, getting tired and so on. And he even died in a very ordinary human way, we may say. So the body is the body, and many people get too much idealized, losing their touch of reality, that attaining these higher states of mastery or realization at any degree, that suddenly you overcome the simple human nature. Of course, there are yogis who may do certain modifications. They may stop their heart for a few seconds. But what's the big deal of it, to stop your heart for a few seconds? Does it help anybody else to liberate their souls? If you manage to stop your heart for a few seconds, if a yogi spends multiple lifetimes to develop a mastery of levitation, to lift up his bum from the floor, does it help any other souls on their path to liberation at the end of the day? So you see, these modifications of a human nature, they're extremely optional, we may say. But it's such a paradox that the human mind suddenly sees it as something supernatural and then thousands and millions of followers flock around this person and they worship him or her. This is such a fallacy, such a grand illusion. So essentially, the human nature is simple. It is the human body. Yes, you may have great efforts to modify it to a certain extent, but the true fruits, the true efforts is in attainment of the inner empowerments, of the inner cities, to assist other beings, other souls on their journey back home. So human nature, the same way in the story of Buddha, he was born as a prince, though, had a good life at first, but he saw the illusion of it. And then he experienced great sufferings in seeking of enlightenment. After attaining enlightenment, he realized the middle way, that he shouldn't put too much pressure on the human body, because when it suffers, the mind is not clear. It is not the balance. It is more difficult. So therefore, he started to eat and he finished all the yogic austerities and realized that simply maintaining a good balance in the human body is all what is needed at the end of the day. And he was teaching for a good 40 years, and he left his body in the regular sense as any other human being does, to drop the cloth. Austerities are optional in reality, and trying to modify it in various ways, it's quite a waste of time, let's be honest. It's so temporary, the human body. Why waste decades on trying to attain simple 4 elements modifications, where you could dedicate these decades for higher purposes? So that is more wiser approach. So essentially, it is the nature of God, the supreme true God. Then there's the nature of the soul, which traverses all creations up and down. It's the true medium of God. The avatar of God is the soul. The soul is the avatar of God. And it goes into creations and comes back and assumes its mastery and then assists others. And then the humanness, the nature of a man or woman, the human nature, is temporary. It will be dropped. It just needs to be taken care of. So this trinity of God, soul, and the human nature is what all of us embody. And of course, in a physical sense, we have different bodies. At the level of the soul, we have different souls. At the level of God, we are one. If we see from the eyes of God, all the souls are within me. All the souls are the cells of the self of God. And all the bodies are further lower forms. And the nature and the planets and the stars and all environments are simply more denser forms, denser cells within the larger body of God. So from the eyes of God, it is all one. It's very simple. It is all manifested, all created. From the eyes of the soul, it is a wondrous journey. It is a wondrous exploration, experiences of infinitude of possible experiences, and ultimately attaining liberation as a soul, a complete return to the God nature, to self-realization in all its truest senses. And the human body is simply a body. So unique, so special in so many ways, simple yet complex, demanding maintenance and so on, as physical life is. So I want to share with all of you these great blessings. And in today's meeting, to reveal that you are the avatars of your soul, of God. And as you consciously work through all of it, you will realize all of it and you will receive as much as you're working on it, as much as you're blessed to receive, as much as you can handle to receive. I can always give more.